welcome to Trinity Update. And with us today is Mr. Raymond O'Connor. Welcome. Welcome to the program. And he is representing the Pioneer Total Abstinence Association of the Sacred Heart. For many of us in Trinidad and Tobago, it's probably the first time we're hearing about this group. Well, Raymond, welcome to Trinidad. I understand it's your first visit here in this part of the world. Welcome. And you came to the ordination of Father Matthew Martinez. So welcome to Trinidad. And I know many of us have not heard of this association. Tell us a little bit. What is the Pioneer Total Abstinence Association of the Sacred Heart?
Well, it was a movement that was founded by Father James Cullen, who was a Jesuit priest back in 1898 in Ireland. And we were, say, under British rule at that time. And Father Cullen was interested in, obviously, political freedom for Ireland, but he was very much interested in personal freedom. And unfortunately, a lot of Irish people would have turned to alcohol, abuse of alcohol, to deal with their problems in life. So he decided that he would initiate this movement as a way of, in some way, counteracting this particular problem. So he had this vision. He decided there was no point going to people who had a problem with alcohol directly, but rather approach, for example, let's say there's a husband in a family who's an alcoholic, approach the wife of that person and ask her to consider giving up alcohol and offering that up as a prayer on behalf of her husband. So that's how this movement began. And it really took off. At one point in our history in the 1960s, we had about 500,000 members in Ireland, with a population of about 3.5 million at that time. So it was a sizable proportion of Irish society at that time. But really, one of the benefits that of being a member in that sense was the whole goal really behind it is promotion of peace and harmony in the home. Because when you're sober, I think you're free in many, many ways. So really, it's important to point out, I suppose, the goal of the association is it's not anti-alcohol, but it's anti-alcohol abuse. So we got, alcohol is a gift from God. It's in moderation. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But unfortunately, we live in a society where I think this is universal. People tend to overindulge, and that's where the problem lies.
I suppose having in Ireland at that time with all that alcohol use, I suppose it was to numb the pain of what is happening at the time.
There are many reasons probably for it, but a lot of that would be probably to numb the pain, exactly. But we all know that's not a healthy way of living.
I guess many success stories would have come out of the association.
There's many people who've done wonderful things. There's a sister that I know who's actually who's a pioneer, but she kick-started a whole rehab program for drug addicts and alcoholics. She's well known in Irish society. Sister Concilio is her name. But there's lots of people in the walk, lots of Irish people throughout the last 100 odd years, who've they've had the time really to develop their gifts and to actually make a positive contribution to the culture. So yeah.
What is the mission, the vision for the?
Well, the mission, I suppose, is the promotion of sobriety, and pioneers really intercede for people who are addicted. So it's say the members really abstain. The three basic rules of membership are to abstain from alcohol.
So you have to, if you decided that you are going to become a member, you have to abstain totally from alcohol.
There's different membership categories. So there's short-term membership. Some people can decide, to do it for Lent. Can take short-term pledges.
And a lot of Trinidadians, it's a cultural in Trinidad, a lot of Catholics give up alcohol for Lent.
So that's a good period. Another thing we're trying to promote as well back in Ireland is the month of the Holy Souls in November. So that's another period. Another period could be after Christmas for New Year's resolution for the month of January. So there's different times. Then you've got another category of membership is the temporary membership for a year. And then if for those who wish to choose it, they can take on the lifelong membership. But basically, so the rules are to abstain from alcohol for the period that you specify, to say the Pioneer Prayer, which I'll say shortly, twice a day for people who have a problem with alcohol. And the third thing is to wear this little emblem. It's an emblem which has the image of the Sacred Heart, which represents God's love for humanity. So the prayer that we say, I actually think the prayer itself kind of, when you actually hear it, says a lot. So I'll just say it: for thy greater glory and consolation, O most Sacred Heart of Jesus, for thy sake, to give good example, to practice self-denial, to make reparation to thee for the sins of intemperance, and for the conversion of excessive drinkers, I will abstain for Lent for a year, for life, from all intoxicating drinks. Amen. It's a very, very powerful prayer. And I can just share just a story with you. I remember being at an exhibition in Ireland. It's the biggest outdoor exhibition in the country. We have about nearly 300,000 people attended over the course of 3 days. And we had a stand, a pioneer stand at this event. And I met this gentleman who was in his late 40s, early 50s. And he came in and I asked him, do you ever think about becoming a pioneer? And he said, actually, I enjoy a pint. So I said, fine. And then I asked him another question, and I said, do you ever think, is there any reason in the world that would make you consider giving up alcohol apart from health? And he thought about it for a second, and he said, I have a friend of mine, actually, who's an alcoholic, who's basically is losing his marriage, his farm, everything that's dear to him. And he said, I'd actually think of probably do it for him. And I said, this is what the Pioneer Association is about. This is essentially what it's about. So he said, he took it on. And I met him a year later at the same event. And he says, I'm glad I met you because I want to tell you the end of that story. And he says, that friend of mine, within 3 months of taking on this commitment, he stopped drinking.
Wow.
So that is the reason for me being a pioneer, essentially. That's what it's about. That's what it's for. Mm-hmm. I've only had that story in 14 years of working for the Pioneer Association. But I believe these are the little miracles that take place every day in some part of the world.
Yeah. And I guess as a Christian, you just have to believe that your prayers, they go somewhere, that miracles happen somewhere, and you don't have to always see it.
Absolutely, no, you don't. Like, your faith doesn't depend on that in some ways. But my faith, I'm Catholic, I believe in God, and I certainly believe that God hears every prayer.
Yeah, Raymond, how did you get involved?
I suppose I got involved, back in the year 2000. I met this priest who kind of approached me.
Were you involved with alcohol before?
No, not really.
Socially, not. I would have been. Oh, sorry. I would have maybe drank on occasions. I remember in my teenage years maybe getting drunk on a couple of occasions, but I actually never really liked the sense of drunkenness, the loss of self-control. I didn't really like that part of it. But anyway, I met this priest who kind of threw out the idea, and at that time I was involved in an organisation that organised soup runs for homeless people who are addicted to drugs or alcohol. This is in the Dublin city centre. You'd see sometimes a lot of homeless people living on the streets. So I remember we got involved with that, and I remember just looking and saying there has to be a deeper way of solving this problem, because what we used to provide them was food, clothing, sometimes shelter, but that was very, very short term. And I said there has to be a deeper way of solving this problem. And I realised I'm only human, like all of us, and we don't have the ability to wave a magic wand and cure people. But the God that I believe in is a God of complete love and compassion and understanding. He knows why we end up in the place that we end up. So I felt that this movement, with God's grace, can actually, transform many people's lives. But I believe that someone has to take on the sacrifice. Someone has to take it on and pray for those who are less fortunate than ourselves. So this particular movement, it's different from AA. Those who have a problem, many people tend to go to AA. This is for people, and that's good. I think AA is a wonderful organisation, does an awful lot of good. But
and
so many of us don't want to go to AA.
No, but I think it's great. First of all, it's important in order to overcome a problem, you have to recognise that you have a problem. So I think it's important that these organisations exist and that there are other like programmes like rehab, and they're all very good, and they should, if you need to avail of it, do it. But I suppose this particular movement is, as I mentioned earlier, that I see us as an organisation that would intercede on behalf of those.
Because I suppose as family, if you have a relative or a friend who is an alcoholic or involved, you feel so helpless, really. How much can you nag? How much can you advise? How much can you try to reason and rationale?
There's only so much you can do in that,
yes. Yeah. So I suppose the Pioneer group, it really gives you something
to aim for, and it's beyond, you're looking to, and I do believe God acts, as said, it's in His own time and His own pace, but God will act.
Yes.
And I don't think any prayer is wasted.
Yes,
God will use
that prayer. We have a saying in Trinity, well, all I can do now is pray, but and I always say, no, that's what you do. You pray. It's not all you can do. It's what you do.
Absolutely.
And being able to really pray and feel that something is happening in this person's life.
Now, this is a movement that actually took off in Ireland. As I said, it was founded by an Irish Jesuit priest, but it actually has gone around the world at this stage, through the Irish missionaries initially. But we have large numbers in Africa, actually, nearly about probably 400,000, 350, 400,000 members in Africa, mainly through the Irish missionaries that went abroad. But we are located in, as I say, different, like America, South in Bolivia, South America, Africa. But again, predominantly through the Irish missionaries that went abroad at that time. But I believe it's a wonderful organisation that can make a difference to the problems of alcohol abuse in the home.
So to be a member, whether you are a temporary member or you take it on for, you said there's 3 different, you can take it on for a year, or you can do it like for a month, for Lent or for November. But you have to give up certain things. You have to get involved in certain ways.
Well,
well, I know you just said the prayer, so you have to do the prayer.
You have to abstain from alcohol for the period. Say the prayer twice a day, and wear this little emblem that's all that's required of a member. 3 basic rules. So if anyone is basically interested, they can.
And what about advocacy? Do you have to speak to the person as well?
Funny enough, our members we're not necessarily an advocacy group. There's other organisations that lobby on behalf of, like, the government policy and stuff like that. That's not necessarily our particular role. This is our particular mission. It really is to say, just it's an organisation that, and I certainly think there's so many benefits to it in relation to, if you think about it from if you're going out on a Friday night, you don't have any hangovers the next morning. You can wake up, you can enjoy getting out, seeing the world, getting out, seeing nature. I think that's all very important. But yeah.
But have you, is it possible, if we want to bring it to Trinidad, to the Caribbean, I don't think it's available in the Caribbean at all.
Not that I'm aware of, no, but I actually, that's no problem. I mean, you can always contact myself. We can go onto our website, which is,
So do you belong, you have to belong to the specific, to the group, you have to connect?
Yeah, I suppose become enrolled, get involved, and then if you want to promote it, you can always, get involved that way and start promoting amongst your family and friends. And in a sense, the basic structure that we have is a pioneer centre.
Okay.
Where you'd have about 4 or 5, 6 people involved at a centre level, and they would organise activities within the parish. And that's how it starts, and that's how it grows. So that really depends on the.
Is it very difficult to start a group? Have you in your, because you say it's in a lot of parts of the world where the Irish missions are.
Absolutely.
Is it difficult? Do you find that people are responsive to it? What kind of feedback
I suppose in Ireland now, I suppose we've reached, in the 60s, we reached a high point, and now we're starting to decline in numbers. We're probably now about 150,000 members in Ireland now. So it is getting harder. I think as the faith kind of declines, it makes it harder to take this on. So I do feel there's a link with the faith. If the faith is strong, the pioneers, I think, will be strong. If the faith is weak, the pioneers are weak as well. That's just unfortunate the way it is.
But then the pioneers, the numbers would be weak, but I guess the pioneers would have to really double up.
Exactly,
in their commitments as well.
But it's just, it's harder. There's no way. Like, it is harder to. People tend to like to party, like to socialise. That's one of the big problems we have with young people in Ireland. It's very hard to get these concepts across. Everyone pretty much wants. I'm sure it's the same here in Trinidad. Everybody wants to have a good time, and it's kind of.
And I think there's a kind of watering down of principles and watering down of it's really cool now to be drinking on a Friday evening in Trinidad. We have a big problem with the after work lime.
Yeah.
Where after work you go and it's cool to be drinking, and we're finding a lot of problems with even our females in Trinidad. Is that something?
That's I think that's something similar in Ireland and Western Europe as well. I think that problem is kind of becoming universal now in many ways. It's a pity really, because I suppose for those who, let's say, wouldn't like to take on this lifelong commitment, I feel though the goal that should be in one's life is moderation in the use of alcohol. And I think the more we can develop that healthy attitude, the better our society will be and function. So moderation is the goal of every Christian, as far as I'm concerned. It should be the goal of every Christian. This is just an extra add-on for those who would like to take this commitment on. It's not for everybody, but I believe certainly there are a number of people who could take it on.
Do you, if you're socializing, because we talk about moderation, and so if you are socializing yourself, Raymond, do you find it difficult? Because I think this is one of the problems that we experience, at least in this part of, and probably generally in all parts of the world. If you're out socializing, you don't want to be, I'm square, I don't take alcohol, no, I don't want. And people think, well, you're quite boring. that you must take a little something. This is
I know just how it's perceived. Yeah.
And if you say no, I never touch alcohol, they say, oh, you're an AA. You belong to AA. So.
Well, for me now, I must say, when I was younger, even before I joined the Pioneers, I always felt. I never really liked anyone telling me what to do in that sense. Like, I think it's important to stand up on your own 2 feet and make these decisions. Say, listen, I'm not just going to follow the crowd. I think it's important to actually have that kind of backbone, not to be a person that follows the crowd, but actually be different. And I do think we need people today to be radically different to the culture, because it's like the blind leading the blind. And otherwise, I do think we need people who can actually swim against the tide and make that difference in life. And I think an awful lot of young people, unfortunately, if the goal of socialising is to go out to get drunk, I think it's quite tragic. And it's a culture that we have to transform, we have to change. And I'm sure there's many young people, not just in Trinidad, but around the world, who would like to, maybe they're sick and tired of all this, going out getting drunk, getting tired, the same old thing every week. So I just would propose the challenge, okay, start making the change. Make the change in your life, and then you're able to transform others.
And it's not only just go out and get drunk, but go out and get drunk fast.
Yeah. Now that's a big problem in Ireland as well.
And that's a shooter.
Yeah.
They do a lot of shooters.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many parents are aware of this. I don't know. And for those of us who are parents and who are listening, maybe the group is something that we should really consider getting involved in, because I don't think a lot of adults, a lot of parents are aware of what is really happening at a lot of these parties. Because the shooters, it just gives you a kind of quick start, so you just take a straight something, and so you're already feeling that way, and then you coast later on, but by then you're just totally zoned out.
Absolutely.
As it is. Yeah. And so I think it's a good idea. Do you have, what is the age group that of people who would be involved in
we
this
have
association?
We have all ages, actually. We'd have, we promote this organisation to the young people in the schools. So we'd have members at that age, from the age of, say, 8 to 11. We have a juvenile category from 8 to 11, and then a young pioneer category from 12 to 25. So that's that. And then, but our members are ages from all ages, literally from, let's say, 8 years of age to 80, 90 years of age.
So would you have an association, for example, at the university? Would you open, is this how it's done, that you can start an association at the university?
Absolutely.
So there's all the other groups that they have at the university, there's also an association.
If you have 4 or 5 people who are willing to take on this initiative in their own life, they certainly can start a society in a university. That's no problem, yeah. And be willing to promote it. And just, I think it's college campuses are the same everywhere pretty much.
What is the methodology that you use to actually promote it? Because I could be very quietly abstaining here for my husband or my son or my brother or something, but how is there a way that the word gets out that this is being done, that you can do it?
There's many ways, I suppose. For example, you could stand up if you become a member, you could actually stand up in your local church and do a little bit of a promotion that way to your particular parish. Obviously, Facebook now, in the age of social media now, so there's many ways of promoting this message. But really and truly, I think it's your own personal witness. It's the most effective way, actually. Just work within your own little circle. And if you've taken explain, I think it's important to understand the rationale why you take on something, know what it's about. If you believe in it, that's part of the reason. Like you asked me there, when I socialise, I do get tempted, maybe every now and again, but deep down I understand why I'm doing this, and it keeps me focused, keeps me motivated. I really do believe, first of all, I want to make a radical difference to people's lives in that sense, and I believe that this mission can actually make that difference in some way, shape or form. That's really what keeps me motivated. So yeah, I really feel that when you look at it, it's a very simple concept. It's prayer and fasting applied to this particular social problem. And that's very Christian, very Catholic. And ultimately, if a person has, I find that if somebody has even a small degree of faith, people know that prayer works. And every one of us has probably experienced adversity in life at different stages. And what's the first thing we tend to do? We tend to say, oh my God, help me. That's a prayer.
Well, I have a personal testimony to that prayer works in that way, because my father used to be an alcoholic, and he has not touched alcohol since I was about 8 or 10 years old, a few years ago.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, so I am a living testimony that prayer works when it comes to alcoholism.
And who knows, maybe that was the pioneer somewhere, some pioneer around the world, and your father benefited from that grace that came from the sacrifice of a pioneer.
And it's always something that very passionate about myself because I understand, I grew up understanding the pain and also understanding that prayer works in that way, that it can in fact bring on a big difference to you in your life when someone decides to convert and give up alcoholism. So
it's funny, so I'll just share another story. Actually, we got an email from a woman in the US, and she was saying that she heard of the Pioneers from a local pastor, but she was in hospital for health reasons. Now I thought that as the story was unfolding that she was saying she was an alcoholic, but actually she wasn't the one that was the alcoholic. It was her daughter who was an alcoholic. But she took on the Pioneer commitment for her daughter. And it was very interesting. She said actually, now her daughter was so bad that literally her life has just went in a tailspin. And she ended up in prison and drink driving offences. Oh. But anyway, cut a long story short, she actually got a call. The daughter rang her mother after a period of 2 years and said, I woke up one day without any desire for alcohol. And her mother puts that down to the Pioneer commitment. So I just think these are stories of hope, I think, and it's not just, they're not stories that are made up, they're genuine.
And it's so important, I think, for us to hear stories, stories of hope, because so many times when we're actually going through a crisis, so when we're in the middle of it, it's just a sense of hopelessness.
That's right,
that surrounds us, and to know that groups like this exist and people are out there praying.
And I do believe it works. It makes that difference in some way, shape or form, but it does make that difference.
Do you focus, for example, if a group calls and says, a family calls and say, will you pray for my husband, is there a focus that you will say that members of the group will be actually praying for this person specifically, or is it that you just do it?
It's an individual commitment that's taken on by the person. And we don't have like a petitions box or that kind of stuff. Okay. Actually, it's something I might be looking at down the road, but that's at the moment we don't have that. But it's the person who takes this on and they do it maybe for whatever they could offer for their father or their mother, whatever it is. They take it on at an individual level, at a personal level.
Do you have many persons like yourself who would just not come from a situation or not doing it for your father, but you're just doing it for the love of God and for the love of humanity?
We have, as I said, about 150,000 members in Ireland, and I think that it's the whole spectrum of different, you've got somebody who's there because they were an alcoholic, somebody who's there because their mother was an alcoholic. I'm there because I believe in the mission of, interceding for the other person. So you have a range of spectrums of motivations behind why a person has joined. But ultimately, I think the ultimate point is it's turning to God and asking God to heal that void, that emptiness, that space, that place where you're broken, that led to the excessive consumption of alcohol or the misuse of drugs. But ultimately, we were talking about young people there. I do think that we need to tackle this issue of underage drinking or alcohol abuse, because it is frightening. Even I read a statistic there in Ireland a couple of years ago. 40% of marital breakdown rates is because of alcohol abuse. So that's not just, I don't believe that's just an Irish problem. This is a worldwide problem. And we can see, for me, the beauty of this association is if we can save one family life from the destruction of alcohol, it's a beautiful goal that's achieved. And
listening to you, it's amazing how all these things are linked, because you have so many people working in family life groups, and this is one of the main causes. You're saying this alcohol, these addictions.
It's addictions,
because addictions are coming now in so many forms. There's Facebook addiction, which is really, we laugh at it. But faced with it right now, I know 2 marriages that are in crisis because of the internet. Well, people, they seem more married to the internet than their spouses, and very much commit. And it's almost like something just draws you away from. And there's so many addictions that our young people are out there faced with.
That's why I think in some ways I would encourage any young people who may be watching this show to actually consider taking this on, even for, I would even say, a year, to take it on for a year, because it will teach you probably the virtue of moderation, the virtue of temperance. And I think that's very important to have in life. Because if we find that we don't know how to control, if we don't have the ability to say no to certain things, I do believe we're going to have problems in life. So it's important to learn self-control. And I think that this method or this organisation can help you attain that goal, I think.
Well, Raymond, I'm sure that there are people out there who are saying, let's launch this. I know our schools, our university, I think it's a fantastic idea for like our Form 6s and our tertiary education, our tertiary level students. And so if a group is interested in it, what do? You get online and find...
Basically, you can contact me. My name is... all the details will be up on the website. Just contact our website, www.pioneerassociation.ie, and you directly make contact with me, and my email address would be pioneer@jesuit.ie, and we can start a conversation from there. That is no problem. Just give me a call or give me a shout by email, and we'll make contact.
And you have to, and of course, you just make all the commitments.
If you're willing to take on whatever, for those who want to do it for short term, that's fine. For those who want to do it for temporary, that's fine. But for those who want to go the extra mile in that sense and do it for life, we can.
What percentage? Just a question. What percentage of people who
we actually wouldn't have the, but you wouldn't have the figures on that. But I'd say there's a fairly high percentage would be life members.
Life members, yeah. Mm-hmm. And what's the components? Is it male or female or?
It's literally 50-50.
It's basically 50-50.
50-50. Yeah.
Because we always say that the Catholic community is a lot of the praying Catholics in at least Trinidad and Trinidad are females, and as you're saying, and as I'm realizing, that is just a fallacy, really, because there are a lot of men who are very, very, very involved.
I think our founder, would you believe, he wanted to start off with women, but he was at a meeting one day, and the men were so annoyed at that fact that a group of men approached him and said, "Why can't we join?" And that's how it kicked off. Yeah.
So for those of us viewing, you can contact Raymond O'Connor, and it's I know we have it's the Pioneer Total Abstinence Association.
Of the Sacred Heart,
of the Sacred Heart. And you can find him online.
Online, www.pioneerassociation.ie.
Yeah, and or you just Google, and I'm sure your website will turn up.
It'll come up, yes.
And it's really something to consider. Our society needs help. Our society needs people like yourself who will be willing to get involved and really do something tangible instead of just sitting back and talking. Really doing something about it. Well, Raymond, thank you so much for being here this morning. And I know you still have a couple hours here on our soil, so get involved, do something.
Absolutely.
Do something
Thank you.
exciting.
I plan to go to the beach for the afternoon.
Oh, you're going to the beach today? Well, I hope you get lovely, beautiful sunshine on the beach. And to all our viewers, thank you so very much for being with us, and enjoy the rest of your day.